Okay, so for the time being though, guys, like really welcome. Like we have up to 13 others if all goes right. Like I think there's 17 students and 17 participants here. And of course, everyone like will not immediately start talking because there's more than one person, right? So we're gonna make sure that everyone has like a word in when it comes to Q&A. I will have breaks in between, and we will address all your questions about competitive debating or like your introduction to competitive debating at least. Don't worry about it. Chill, chill. Also, not Aaron. How it's not fair. How do you have clear skin? Like annoying, huh? Really annoying.
Lighting. I have good lighting.
Really annoying, huh?
I have good lighting.
Good lighting is one thing. Clear skin is also another thing. So sure, okay, attributed to clear lightning, like clear lightning. That's fine. I don't believe you, but okay. Me being tired all the time. All right. So who else is in here? Okay, there's two more. Hi, Tinish, and hi. Oh, Chloe's here. K. Oof. 6 is a party. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Dun, 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 dun. Let me just check a moment because like some people might have like problems with Zoom. Also, my Zoom is like up to like no limitation so far, so we don't have to jump in and out. Like hell yeah, bro. That is the life. That is the life. Dun, 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 dun. While we're waiting for the others to come here, like feel free to share in the Zoom chat like what your experience is in debating. And also I'm probably gonna ask everyone as well. If you're not comfortable with using the mic, feel free to type in the Zoom chat about like hopefully that it works for you, the Zoom chat, because like the only thing that is annoying about Zoom is that I cannot see people typing. So if I see people typing, I know like I need to wait a little bit, everyone is responding. But now it's just kind of like a blank screen and me looking at you, relying on my supreme divine comedy skills and to get through the day. But like, it's fine. We're gonna pretend no awkwardness exists, right? So if possible, I would love to tell you guys like what do you hope to achieve here? What do you hope to understand or like what do you hope to gain here at least? I know that this is just a beginning of something that VBest just advertised in one day or two, but I do feel like it's a very good opportunity for open interaction in terms of like determining what you need and what you want out of this entire session. So feel free, tell us like what do you aim for and what do you aim to hear about here? Because I feel like I am catering mainly to those VBest students that are new to this entire thing. Because some faces I know about. Like for example, Aaron, I push his face around all the time. I know his face. So I also know like a few other students. So they are here because they want introduction. They know how I am in class. They know how I rant about capitalism, how I go like check your privilege, bros, and how I make everyone basically evaluate what they know, right? So they know what they're here for. And they're gonna have a more formal setting, a formal introduction to things. But those of you who already have like competitive debating experience and all that, I will be happy to learn about what you know and what you plan to know and all that, So again, feel free to talk. Like if you want to use and unmute your mic, that's great too. If you want to use text, that's also great. Ingu, okay. Jesslyn, admit. Oh, ooh, okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 10 so far. We have up to 7 students that we're going to wait up for. So again, let's open the topic for now in terms of casual discussion. Oh, they're all here. All right. Casual discussion. What are you here for? What's your experience? How long have you debated, for example? How long have you debated? What experience do you have? Do you plan to come here seeking guidance on structure? Do you plan to come here seeking structure on like matter, like these kind of things? Feel free to use the Zoom chat, right? And also who's texting, what's up? No, haha. Thanks, I'm recording, okay. Also, we'll be using slides as well today. So like I will share screen net. If you see anything embarrassing on screen, which I have hopefully curated, I don't know, my dog pics or something, like my dog pics might be around. Like, look, I don't know how my dog looks like to y'all. If like a sudden dog just pops out, just ignore it, okay? Like I don't know where I'm putting my dog pics and all that. I've canceled everything, but I don't know like whether it's gonna stay on screen and whether it's gonna be like distracting or not, okay? So 4, 5, 15, 2 more. Okay, 2 more, Adam Harris, okay. Practically everyone is almost here. Also, Arina, contributor, write in the Zoom chat about like your experiences and all that. You should take the lead so most can follow. It comes down to trickle down effects, right? Okay. Also, hi Hajna, hi Chloe, hi everyone who just came in here. Tanish, thank you. Also, oh yeah, Tanish is the one, like you're the one who texted me earlier, right? Thanks for the proposal, by the way. Like, I hope that whatever you saw, what you were looking for, we can integrate into the current lesson as well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 2 years ago, but stopped eating last year because of IGs, and I'm here. I miss it. Hey, ha ha ha. Interesting. And also, hey, like someone just privated me, but don't be scared. I feel like if you guys want to open up all your like mics, because Aaron is already like being a soldier in terms of opening his like camera, webcam. Like it's just a start. Like don't worry about it. Like this, I think this is going to be more interactive based, more than like lecture based the entire way anyway. So yeah, it's a good place to start. Oh, what does Tanish look like? Is it Tanish or Tanish? You look so familiar. Hi. Thanks for joining us on the webcam scene. So I think there's one more student and one more person, but like, if you try mid-piece debating class if you've heard of it. Huh. Debating class if you've heard of it. Mid-P. MIDP. Oh, MIDP. Is it a medical school? Ah, yeah. Yes, I've heard of it. Like, how long have you joined there? Oh, and not medical school. They're like, yeah, I know what it is, but I don't know the abbreviations of it. Joined for a while. Hey, well, like, nice to have you here. If anyone like has like hold on, I'm not really good at debating. I feel like that's a good thing though, because like I feel like a lot of people who come from a shy background, who have been reserved for one reason or another, that's why you get into debating. Even if you start out from like, for example, Toastmasters or maybe MUN or anything else that comes to a place, and then you progressively work towards debate, it's only because you want to hone your voice, right? You want to forge your voice to be able to like cut through the BS in the world and just like be able to vocalize your thoughts. So I think a lot of that background is similar. Some people just want to argue, it's fine. But I do feel like debate has a lot of like a lot of layers to help you like self-actualize and all that. So I'm really glad you're here either way. The institute debate in public years, and I was definitely 2 years. Ah, nice, bro. That is good. Like that is so similar. Like, cause like this is the institution that's been like drafting up like rules about like the debate scene and all that when it comes to Malaysia in general. Like I don't know if you guys have heard of WSDC and all that. So those institutions are kind of like the mainstays of like Malaysia that kind of propels Malaysia's debating scene to the heights that it is right now. I feel like ever since like I think 10 years back or like maybe 15 years back, a certain generation of debaters have like kind of like attended these kind of like, for example, Oscars, like these kind of like international competitions that has like led us to the scene. And that, therefore right now, at least in public universities and universities, it's like a pretty good standard to go by. So yeah. Dish. Okay, you want more knowledge about it. Also, Hachina, keep it open. It's okay to keep your comments open. I went to MUN. Okay. Going to WSDCT but stupid Canora. Miss D, Richard knows Kena. Not really, but I'm more familiar with coaches like, for example, do you know Roshan? I know Roshan from Monash. I know coaches from Taylor's. I know about Max. I don't know if you guys know these kind of old school debaters. They're considered like more Dino, kind of like like Dino League. And Magdap is training like BAC or like was training BAC because like I'm from BAC. I'm from Brickfields, by the way. I did not represent Brickfields in any form, but I am from the Brickfields, the competitive debate team. So like as much as I'm like kind of like a junior or like a youngling there, it's been an incredible experience just meeting a lot of people through debating lah. Backdoor is the most recent competition that we have like hosted and ended before Corona. So Corona has been like kind of like stopping things a little bit. Initially, we were going to send teams to go for like national novice and also go into like different kind of like tournaments before the British Parliament and all that. But, you know, Corbett. All right. So now that we know a little bit more about each other and then how like everyone has like been to like MUN and all that, I'm glad you guys have been to MUN. MUN is a really good start, I think, about understanding global issues. let's start with like what we're gonna do today. So I'm giving you an overview that you can see here. That is just a preliminary kind of like itinerary so that you can follow that. So first of all, we're going to talk about the essence of debating a little bit, what it's meant to achieve. Like if anyone has already been in the debate scene, I think it's still worth refreshing a little bit, like what we are doing when it comes to the debate scene, what we aim to achieve here, the technical understandings of it. If you already understand it, we will go through it a little quicker, because even the newer high school debaters and all that, you will learn these technical things as you go, and I will send you PDFs and all that. Ultimately, like the technical things can be boiled down to Asian parliamentary and British parliamentary, the two kind of like most popular debate styles. So you will have a PDF for that, don't worry, but we'll go through that. And then we go through the lifeboat case, first principles, modern issues, which we can tweak a little bit, and then research methods, right? I think research methods is really crucial here. So let's go with introduction, all right? I feel like everyone is here if like nothing is like wrong. Hold on, no one's texting me. Okay, so no one is like going on. So like, as I was saying before, like I feel like debating is ultimately an art form, right? Like a competitive art form. Like if you want to be more oversimplified in a funny way, it's probably so that you can argue with the person next to you in a more meaningful way and feel like your ego being stroked in a pretty okay way and all that. That's the funny oversimplification of it, arguing and people arguing, because ultimately, to be fair, when you're debating, you're not really like achieving anything structural yet, but you're getting there. You're kind of like going into the foundation of understanding what the debate and the heart of the debate is, and arguing with people with like-minded or non-like-minded mindsets when it comes to it, and then you go move on from there. So the art of arguing. But I do feel like kind of like integrating into my creative writing background as like in VBest. So in VBest in general, I feel like this is it touches on the syllabus as well, because I feel like everything that you're debating about, you need to learn about in depth. It's kind of like an opportunity for you to kind of like immerse yourself into the shoes of other perspectives. And while I feel like, at least like, there will always be biases, you will have biases as to how you frame the characterizations of your debate based on your beliefs and your personal kind of like upbringing, everything, right? Like for example, as Malaysians and all that, maybe we have like more insight into like different like racial issues and all that. For example, it's a very common thing that's debated in our politics, leading down into our everyday interactions in spite of like the propagandas that are set for us. Or maybe if you are someone who is like a person, like I would assume that everyone here is a person of color, unless there's a white person here that I'm not aware of. I will roast white people every now and then. So if there's a white person here, know that it's not about you. It's a collective thing. All right. So I think that safe to say everyone here is a person of color. So like we are trying our best to understand the intersectionalness of like issues. Intersectional meaning that we are understanding that things are more structural and layered than it might seem. It's not enough that we use a more westernized kind of like liberal lens to look at it. Of course, it is more popular in the debate scene, yes, but it's not the only way to look at it. So it's a clash of all these dimensions and nuances, right? So in order to truly be a constructive debater that constantly expands, a lot of reading must be done. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like you can be an intuitive debater. An intuitive debater means like you get the general gist of what's right and what's wrong. You get the general gist of modern issues waving in the back of your head. Like for example, what do you think the privacy issues of TikTok are? Like, do you think TikTok is a good thing for our generation right now? I think that's a really good open topic for us. Like, for example, hey, guys, do you think TikTok, the phenomenon of TikTok, is a good thing for us or not? Please write yes or no and why. Like, give like a general, like, just like type it out. I feel like it's a 2-minute thing. Like, is TikTok a cultural phenomenon that should be encouraged or discouraged? Kind of give your general view on it, like the one-liner for it. You guys do know TikTok, right? Even though I'm a Twitter generation person, so it means that I thought that my meme generation was like pretty up there alongside Reddit already, or like more advanced. And then TikTok came along, and I'm just like, I am old. So everything is just like renewed already. Are you guys in it? Like, how old are you guys? Most of you are high schoolers, right? Like, at least I know that there's like 7 college students and pre-U students, but the rest of you should be in high school range. So
Yeah,
TikTok.
I'm 17.
Who's
I'm
17?
17. I'm still I'm supposed to be doing my IGs on October, November. I was going to do it on May, June, but
Okay. I see. I'm really sorry that everything is
Yeah,
delayed.
same here. We're supposed to be doing our IGCSEs, but COVID-19 happened.
I understand. I was supposed to finish my law degree before COVID. But yes, high school just got cancelled. I'm really sorry about that, by the way, guys. Like, I hope that it has not caused a tremendous delay. It has delayed your life. I can't really deny that. Just hopefully we cope in a way that's like helpful to us. So right now you're here, you and me in front of a screen bonding over like whether TikTok is good for us and all that. So as you can definitely like give up your views, but of course that's just something I'm throwing out. So essentially, when it comes to debating structures and like why it's like, oh, it's a platform. Okay, let's look at this very well. Like, there's an opinion. Platform for people to showcase something they're passionate about, and I love Twitter. Haha, I love Twitter too, but it has been a really long ride since 2016. Ah, the good old days. So I don't know if you guys were on Twitter during 2016, when the US elections are going on. It was bombarded with so many bots. My lord, like it was bombarded with so much vigor. It was pretty traumatizing to like trip through that. Yeah, Twitter is great. Like Twitter loyalists, like yes, thanks. But yeah, Twitter has like there's a lot of algorithm problems and all that, but I think it's a good place for you to earn information and learn about information as well. So I'm glad that some of you are on Twitter to be able to gain that insight, right? So that being said, introduction to debate, basically that's the essence of debate, right? It's a philosophical kind of a debate, I would say, like when it comes to a clash of both spectrums. Usually in every debate motion, there's going to be a core to it that is like expecting you to put forth your best argument on why it should be defended and why it should be persuading the audiences. Like, honestly, there's so many styles of debate. Like, I know that a lot of people are like, hey, debate has to be logical, and hey, debate has to be like statistical, for example. But if you've ever been in the debate scene for long, you would know that even sometimes the most well-spoken arguments on like different layered issues, you have 6 analyses, you have 6 rebuttals, that still cannot be enough to win the debate if you are not making yourself like comprehensible to the audience. If you're not making yourself relevant to the audience. Like I could talk to you here entirely about capitalism for like 6 paragraphs, but if I don't read my judges, I don't know what the general room is. I just go on in my own vacuum. The interaction is like unexpected. You're not going to win the debate, unfortunately. There's a lot of factors to it. So when it comes to debating, I hope you know that those losses are inevitable. If you've been in the debate scene, you can feel like you deserve more than what you're given. You deserve a better ranking. You deserve to be breaking. You deserve to be in semifinals. But if it doesn't, there's just, you just need to acknowledge that judges are diverse. Every judge is diverse. Every panel is diverse. And if you don't manage to sing to that particular crowd, then it's just a matter of expanding your portfolio and your profile a little more and like getting there somewhere. I don't think there's ever a debater who's just like, oh, I'm on a winning streak, bro. Like I'm like dominating once. Because like every time you win a debate, for example, in a tournament for British Parliamentary, the moment you get first place, you go into the good rooms. The moment you get into the good rooms, you see all these debaters from like, world, like the WSDC maybe, or maybe these debaters from Taylor's right now. Taylor's is pretty strong right now. Or these like debaters from any other place, and you're just like, I'm just a child. So losses are inevitable, okay? So algorithm, especially with the standards, especially just ugly people. Real. Don't worry, Aaron. I think like it's good that you're giving like an opinion about like TikTok. Yeah, that's true. Because like I've only recently been to talk about gendered violence on TikTok as well, and those beauty standards and like the fetishization of underage, like because TikTok right now. Yes, we go through it and all, but right now there's a lot of underage teenagers on it as well, which makes it a good phenomenon in a lot of ways because of the expression of passion and all that, and also your cultural identity, because there's so many subgenres that you're looking for, you can relate to, but there's also a danger of like predator behavior because there's so many underage teenagers there. So a lot of like sides to that we will go into in depth later. All right. So now I've kind of like gone through like debate already, like essentially like what it's for and what kind of you can expect in the debate scene and all that, right? So the purpose is already done. Now the technical understandings, honestly, like when it comes to like debate, I would say like usually the main core of what you need to know, you will get into knowing it the moment you start debating. Unfortunately, debate is not something that I can give you a PDF file and you will read the entire file, the PDF file on how you start debating and all that. You can understand the categories of what you should touch on and what you should improve on, but there are so many aspects that's just not, it cannot be covered by a mere PDF file, okay? So technical understandings, the only technical understandings I'm gonna go through here is probably going to be about Asian and versus British Parliamentary, just for newcomers to be aware about it a little bit, but that's it, okay? Like if there's anything else like I would need to like bleed into telling you about, I think the PDF that I will send you later is more than enough and more than sufficient because I'm going to show you about it later. So let's talk about Asian versus British parliamentary. So everyone, I feel like some of the people here, either you start from MUN or you start from debate, right? There is an awareness of what it is. Hold on. So for example, when it comes to like Asian parliamentary, right? Linked to the Chinese Communist Party, so that they really allow showcase, right? Yeah, true. Because like that's a really good point when it comes to TikTok also that we're gonna discuss later. It's owned by China ultimately. And again, if like you're owned by a particular privatized company in a particular nation, they have their own interests beyond you. So for example, LGBTQ content or POC content or content that is like not geared towards the mainstream, that's something that has been kind of like put and shunned in the name of preventing cyberbullying, but in the end, it also erases these demographics. So that on TikTok that I think we can put a little bit of an end to, but like I'm really happy that you guys are responding. Don't worry about like giving it a little late and all that. I feel like ultimately I can still talk about it a little bit and like go, yeah, what is it? What is substantial here? What is good here? And I can still go back, you know? So back and forth. Who is talking? Agreed. Yeah. That is a really good point, honestly. Like, I feel like that leads to the privatization issues of TikTok, and I think that that's definitely worthy of like exploration. So now, AP format. Basically, what is Asian parliamentary, right? So there's two kind of like debate styles, Asian parliamentary and British parliamentary. That's a little more popular. They have their own seasons, right? Asian parliamentary, you might be more familiar with if you're in high school. It means that you have 3 persons on one team and another 3 persons on another team. So what happens is that you have a motion that's like you can prepare for or otherwise, and you have first, second, and third speakers going against one another. So this is the main chart of what you can expect from an Asian parliamentary kind of like debate theme. So like ultimately though, like your roles are pretty set in zone in terms of like, for example, if you're the prime minister, next will be leader of opposition. And then once leader of opposition is done, like it's just kind of like a zigzag motion of you constantly engaging with the content. For example, if you're prime minister on the government team, you are supposed to characterize, like I will even give out like kind of like roles that I expected. I think this one I cannot go in depth about it because like I would have to go into like what is characterization, what's like setting up the model, what's like counter models and all that, which is too big a debate to immediately go through in one setting. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to send it to you for your reference later, and that is it. All right. So for example, again, prime minister and all that, you're supposed to like bring up the essence of the debate, like characterize, because you're supposed to build the case. You build the case, and as long as it's relevant enough, like the leader of opposition will have to engage with it, no matter what. All right. So you need to engage with it in a meaningful way, and you have to dissect it and also introduce your own arguments. And then it goes into that zigzag motion, right, of like rebuttals from like deputy prime minister and rebuttals from deputy leader of opposition, for example. And then you will have like ending speeches and all that, and then you go into like your last few speeches. So Asian parliamentary is a little more straightforward, I feel, like much more straightforward. Whereas British parliamentary, I'll show you the later, but like when it comes to British parliamentary, I feel like a lot of like universities prefer it, honestly, because it's much more interactive. You're going 4 teams, A, B, C, D. Every team has 2 people, and you're basically killing each other in the room. The entire room is like this zigzag motion of you attacking each other in a zigzag motion. If you can imagine that, it's like so many matter that you need to be familiarized with, and so many matter that you need to strike down within a sensible amount of time. So that one I feel like is much more engaging in my opinion. So Asian parliamentary is more like, I would say it's a start. A lot of high school debates prefer Asian parliamentary. If you go to WIRA and all that, it's probably going to be Asian parliamentary, where you present your case in a much more formal presentation kind of mode. So that is just AP format, and ultimately, like in betweens, there's going to be allowance of POIs, if you understand what POIs are. POIs are just like points of information which you want to raise, kind of like a need for clarification. It's what you would call like, hey, excuse me, what is this? What is that? Are you sure about this information? It's just something to kind of like, I think, put a hold to arguments. But POIs, or like raise like clarifications and all that, point of information, is ultimately, like, as far as I'm concerned, it's just to kind of like let the opponent's case kind of waver a little bit, put a hold there, make them think about it, and then make them kind of like be forced to have the burden to defend it a little bit. So I think that that's the main purpose of POIs. Of course, if you can use it effectively, it's great, but you're not supposed to use it to make a new argument, because you only have 1 minute, less than 1 minute for it, or 30 seconds even. Don't go overboard when it comes to POIs. There's an etiquette for it. Like, for example, if someone is in speech, I'm talking right now, and this person keeps sending up POI, 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 like they keep wanting the POI and all that, that's not going to fly. Everyone's going to think you're really annoying, especially if I say like, sit down, I'm going to take you at 6, I'm going to take you at 5, but this person keeps going POI, 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 that's not going to look good on you as well. So time it well. It's a matter of theatrics, it's a matter of like psychology as well. When you are in the room, read the room. So debate sessions are much more effective and much more kind of like interactive in that sense, all right? So that's just for Asian format, okay? Let me go for the British format. So now the British format, I think it's going to be a little like harder to show just a diagram for it, because like it's like what I did was that I came up with like, or like I looked through like the kind of like roles and all that. The thing that you need to do in a British parliamentary format, at least, I feel, is a little more in-depth, because it's not a mere kind of like you one-to-one basis of like three persons, I feel. Of course, to an extent, an Asian parliamentary debate is still going to be kind of, it's still interactive, right? You still need to engage with whatever the previous speakers have talked about. But here, there's a case of like kind of like opening government and closing government teams. So let's like go through it briefly for British parliamentary. So there's opening government, opening opposition, closing government, closing opposition. Every team, there's a prime minister and a deputy prime minister in every segment, right? So the interacting and interesting thing here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, is for example here. You're supposed to start with prime minister, go with leader of opposition, you go with like deputy prime minister, and you go with deputy leader of opposition. So that's very straightforward. However, the new dimension when it comes to British parliamentary is that the closing teams, like closing government and closing opposition, you need to be really careful about your arguments being stolen. What do I mean by stolen? I feel like some of you are already making a face of like, you probably have experienced this before. So when you're opening, you have an advantage of being able to introduce your arguments without delay or barrier. That's the great thing. You can just talk about it. For example, I will say, oh, cannibalism is great, A, B, C. And if you have already noted that A, B, C, trust that your closing government cannot really repeat that without your crediting you instead. You understand? Like, that's the danger of like being in closing government, which is why like closing, like the percentages, like there's a percentage in the reading about competitive debate tournaments at wide. The opening opposition and opening government teams have a higher propensity of winning compared to closing governments, because again, you can repeat arguments. And even if you kind of like, if you have just so happen to have a core argument that's very similar, you better differentiate and you better enhance and analyze it. And even if you analyze it to high hell and you make it like much more better than opening government, as long as the judge feels, hey, but it's the same thing, you're done. You're just like framed out of the entire argument already, which is why closing teams have, I think, a little higher burden lah, okay, in terms of what you need to like engage on. And not only that, not only do you have to be worried about your own opening teams taking your arguments, you also need to be worried about how you probably need to engage with opening, like the opening half, and you also need to engage on the closing half. So both of these aspects, like it's like you have to attack both, okay? As long as like it's like kind of like a, can you see this kind of like cross-section border and all that? You will attack the ones like opposing to you a little bit, and then you also attack your own closing government to make sure that they don't have like the proper analysis that you're gonna give and all that. So when it comes to British parliamentary, it's ultimately very how do you call it? It's so heated. It's so heated because no one's your friend. For real, like maybe you can agree with your own like house a little bit. Like for example, if I said this house would ban like cannabis and all that, right? This house would ban cannabis. That's a very simple title. Usually there's no simple title and motion these days. But if that's the case, then you need to be defending better against your opponent and also against your own team and your own house. So with that being said, that's why like your brain fries and you ultimately learn more than necessary, like, because listening to everyone else's arguments is ultimately going to like increase your capacity to kind of like adapt to everything, you know? So that is a very interesting part of like British parliamentary, which I think is still present in Asian parliamentary, but maybe it's a personal bias lah. I love British parliamentary. I feel like it's watching a competitive sport and you're in there and you're in hot soup and you have to not die. Yeah, like you just need to thrive in the heat of adversity and all that. So before we move on to, because this is the, I think like that's the main parts of the technical aspects that I'm going to go into. I'm not going to tell you, oh, like the speech is 7 minutes. You're supposed to do what, like characterization and all that. Because like I feel like that I can cover in argumentation later. But like, are there any questions so far? Like, is there anything that you feel like confused about when it comes to like British parliamentary or otherwise? If you don't, you can just say like, all good. in like the chat and we can proceed. Good. Okay, good. All right, so we're all good. Thank you for responding. Like if there's anything else, like again, these things are gonna be yours later anyway, so you can refer to it. All right, so let's go to the second thing. Now, the second thing, before I go into like aspects of PERS principles, which I think is a really core part, I will ask you about whether you've heard of it later. I'm gonna give you kind of like, what do you call it? An assignment, okay? This is a case file that I think is really important. And not important, like, it's just fun. It's very interesting, okay? So have you guys heard of the Lifeboat Case before? Okay, I'm gonna give you a link that you can look into, that everyone can read up, and then I'm gonna tell you what we need you to do, all right? Give me 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, I'm just, you know what, I'm just gonna put it in the Zoom chat. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the Zoom chat. I hope that you can see it. If you cannot, then I can send it in the WhatsApp also. Okay. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna write it down. Okay, motion. Wrinkles. Okay, please read this title. In high seas, 5 men were on a lifeboat waiting rescue to the brink of starvation. Parker is the youngest crew member who is weakest physically and has no known family. This house would murder Parker for food. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of like maybe touching on taboo, but I don't know if you guys have watched like Hannibal Lecter or whatever, like maybe this is something like not new to you and all that, but this is the motion. So with that said, with these kind of motions, this is considered, I would say, a little bit of a philosophical argument about like cannibalism and all that, legalization and otherwise. So what I want you to do for the next 5 minutes, or like maybe like 7 minutes, okay, 7 minutes, I want you to chart down like what do you think the pro arguments are, what do you think the opposition arguments are for yourself. So let's like assign now. Let's assign a little bit because like I don't want everyone to do the same thing also. So Aaron, Adam, 2 Adams, Adam Harris, Adam like Ziche, Ibak, Chloe Lee. Okay. So okay, those of you, please do pro arguments, government arguments about why you would support this. Okay, Jesslyn, Zui, Yingru, Xingying, Tanish, okay, Hui Wen, Pachna, Cordelia, Shenhu, right? Like Shenhu. I want you to do like opposition arguments, okay? I would say like it doesn't matter how much you do. I think like 3 is the maximum. You don't need that much. 1 to 3 is more than enough. I want you guys to craft out arguments on your own and let me take a look at it and we will go through it like systematically. If you cannot manage to find arguments and you just prefer to listen in and all that, just give 1, okay? 1 is more than enough, all right? Just, oh yeah, you know what? Give 1. Everyone give 1. You don't need that much, okay? Give 1. Give 1. You don't need that much, okay? I was Gov. You are Gov, my love. Hachina, you are opposition. Okay. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Like, I'll see you later. Sure. Bye. Family issues. Okay. So, carve out 1 or 2 arguments. Like, okay, 2. In case you feel very silenced, I don't want to silence you. You feel like there's more than one thing that you can develop here, please feel free. I'm just giving the 1 as a basis of those of you who are new and feel a little nervous about this and all that, right? So I want to see the arguments later. Only when I say post, you can post in the Zoom so that everyone has like procedural kind of things going on and we can see the overall of arguments and all that. Okay. So I'm gonna time this until 5:37. Okay, and then I'll probably ask. Just like it doesn't matter. Like it's not really a team method thing. It's just like your own arguments thing. Because like later I'm just gonna like make everyone post anyway. I'll make like government post first, and then I'll make opposition post first. Don't worry. Everyone's your team member now. I'm not gonna make you like duke out against each other yet. If you have any questions, by the way, like if you want clarification of like, for example, is this cannibalism? Yes, it is, my friends. Yes, it is. It is cannibalism. Or you go like if you have any other like clarifications anyway, like I can give you the best of my ability, but this is open-ended for a good reason. Parker should not. Don't post first, I remember. Just like write your answer. Oh, okay, it's fine, it's fine. Write your answer first on your own effort, and then everyone posts at the same time later. Like I feel like a lot of people will be against this motion, yes, but like that's the thing. Unfortunately, when you're assigned a certain side, you have to defend things you don't like. That's why it's like a pesky sport. Poor Parker. Parker's fine. I mean, not fine, but this is a real life case, by the way, guys. This has already happened before. So Parker is probably like in heaven right now, but like, it's fine, it's fine. He's okay with like having his body and his life be dissected by intellectual young minds so that we can advance humanity. It's fine, it's fine. Don't feel too bad about him. Oh, you're gonna say that it's good, bro. You're not just gonna say it's okay or legal. You're gonna say, yes, we should kill Parker. We should kill Parker 2 times if necessary. That's what you should go for. Of course, you can be soft about it and go like, we regret this loss of life. We regret the fact that Parker had to die. But in a very bad situation, like you can go hard line or soft line. It depends on your disposition. If you feel like you come off as too much a psycho, if you're too enthusiastic about it, be softer. Like it's your like prerogative. I mean, if he's murdered, I'm pretty sure the consent is low. That's why the word murder is there. That's up to your characterization. Like we don't know. As far as we know, Parker is just any other person. We know that he's physically weak. We know that he's the youngest. We know he has no family. That's it. So
I have a question actually.
Sure.
Has Parker committed any felonies?
Not as far as like the title is concerned.
Okay.
Wow, I'm gonna bleed it into the narrative of this boy has done nothing wrong, Your Honor. Again. It's a game of hypotheticals. I don't know if you guys played the game hypotheticals before. It's like fill in the gaps, make up a story if you have to, but like the story is not the main. I think the main like concern of the issue lah. The heart of it is ultimately about like the principles, right? So let's look into that. 1 more minute, guys. Do you need more time?
No, it's good.
Okay. Okay, if anyone else like needs more time, you can just like say 2 more minutes, please. And I think that we can definitely extend it a little bit. Don't worry. Because guys, this is like a really interesting case file. I love this. I love case files. Like, and it's not because I personally read into like ritualistic cannibalism for fun of it, because it's a very interesting study. But it's just very like engaging in the taboo and like the controversies and all that. It's nice. Like nothing is black and white. Like nothing is black and white. Like you'll find that in debate a lot. Unless someone is like, we love the Ku Klux Klan and whatever, but like, you know, like that person just gets thrown out the window now. So like the debate scene tends to be more liberal, left-leaning, more progressive-leaning. So things about like the more the callous arguments of like, for example, defending inhumane things don't usually come to play. At most, you would say like, oh, maybe scientific, unethical experimentation. Maybe you talk about how you would use animal lives or you would sacrifice, you know, Parker and all that. But it's all theoreticals. They don't usually touch on, for example, this house would bomb a currently existing nation for nothing, you know? So the titles usually and the motions don't usually go like that. Huh?
America.
Bomb America? Okay. Like, what happened? I mean, like, I hate America as much as the next person, but dish. Shanhu. Okay. All right, so we have 1 more minute to 5:40, a little bit of an extension. I think that most people are kind of okay because like you don't need to go in depth. Like an argument is just a one-liner of like, what do you think is the main core issue of this? You don't need to write about how you feel for Parker. I know it's very tempting, but trust me, Parker's fine. Okay. All right. So with that being said, 5. Okay. Okay, 5:40. All right. That being said, let's look at the arguments. So first, can we put government's arguments in first? Everyone in government, please paste into the Zoom chat so everyone can take a look. Okay. Woohoo! Ha ha ha! The heat is packing. Let's go by it one by one. Is there anyone else on government side? I think everyone's okay already, right? So I'm gonna give like 1 more minute to see if anyone else is like looking into this. Lowest chance of survival. Okay, let's look at like ABAC first, huh? ABAC. If I mispronounce it, like let me know later so that I can like adjust this. Like I'm pretty sure I will miss ABAC. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So it is a basic survival. Let's look at one by one. Basic survival strategy. Everyone read, by the way. Like you can just read it. Like I'm giving you 2 minutes to read everyone's arguments for now. read everyone's arguments first. Those of you from opposition, please paste your arguments as well. Want it. Is there anyone else in like closing argument? Okay, Tanish, Singing, Ziwei, Jesslyn, Hachna, Cordelia. Are you guys okay? Oh, yeah, okay. I love how Cordelia is just like making us feel bad for Parker. Huh? I have like beaten this topic to death already. I didn't think I would feel bad for Parker, but you have managed that. All right. So those of you who are still writing, don't worry about it. But those of you who have already posted, feel free to read the arguments from others. Yeah. Okay, 2 minutes. Read up. Yeah, like Adam, you did your best, and I think it's like a viable argument. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'm pretty sure cannibalism is illegal in most countries. Yes, completely prohibited. No, you're doing right. You're doing right. Okay, come on, guys, continue the reading. That's okay. Like I feel like everyone, like you can like look into like what is currently here first, because like the main purpose I want you guys to like even like discuss this or try this out is not because I want you guys to start duking out at each other. Like you can even like when you are done reading with the all the arguments and all that, you'll find that sometimes you will touch on the similar themes. I would say a lot of you touch on similar themes. So for example, the protection of human life, like for example, like the guilt or the moral wrongs of cannibalism, or you talk about like for example like 5, like what is it called? Like 4 is better than 1. 4 is better than 1. Thanks, Aaron, for the contribution. And like there's also talking about practical reasons, right? So for some of the arguments, I think like the main purpose I want you to talk about this or like bring out these arguments is because I want you to differentiate what is a practical argument versus a principled argument. So a practical argument is when you look at the situation when you look at a situation and you feel like, okay, what is the most practical solution here? Maybe you talk about what is commonsensical. You talk about what is right or wrong. So that is practical. That is understandable. That's commonsensical. And that is something that will easily make it understandable to like your audiences and all that, right? However, when you go into higher forms of debating, for example, when you go to pre-U levels, you go to university levels, practical arguments are usually just an addendum. Okay, they're usually just an addendum, and then they're used to kind of talk about, kind of like make it snappy. Like for example, hey, bro, you want 5 or you want 1? Choose. You know, like these kind of things. Ultimately, principal arguments are going to be what ranks a little higher. So that requires me talking to you about what principal arguments are, which is why we go into like first principles. All right. So I would like to introduce what first principles is for you. First principles, as long as you understand it, it's a very difficult concept, by the way, but I do feel like it gives your arguments a little more dimension. What is first principles? Who has heard about first principles before? Like, has anyone heard of it before? Like, can you type in the Zoom chat? If you haven't heard of it, write no. If you heard of it, say yes. Okay. No. Never in my life. It's okay. Now you will hear about it. Okay. Understandable, Chloe. Okay. So, okay. ABAC has heard about it before. Really good. Now, let's talk about what first principles are. Like, first principles is basically the philosophical core of arguments. Does that make sense? It's basically when like you break things down to the heart of the issue. Okay, what is this about? For example, when I ask you like this house would ban, like, for example, or this house would legalize prostitution, for example, that kind of like first principle likely is related to social justice and feminism, or maybe even the sex industry and all that. Or if I ask you a motion about like this house would encourage the use of AI in preserving dead memories, for example, that is something more maybe on like the technological spectrum, or it can also be a kind of like quality of life kind of issue and all that. First principles are ultimately, if you can break it down, like it's very familiar, I'm sure, something that can be broken down to maybe social justice, economics, business, politics, or maybe even philosophy and all that. So first principles are ultimately that there is a core and a structure that you can go by that helps you dissect the issue in a more meaningful way, compared to just, for example, saying that, oh, Parker is going to die anyway, for example. That argument is correct, by the way. It is one of the good arguments. But if you can tie it down to, for example, if the government were to say like, okay, what Aaron mentioned, 5 men on the line, 1 person dies in order to ensure all survival. How are you going to address every other family member or every other person's life? Were they like meant to be dismissed? That is the principle. If you break it down to the first principles, it's more on the philosophical argument of utilitarianism. I hate pronouncing it. Utilitarianism. If I pronounce it wrong, it's because I'm sleep deprived. But utilitarianism basically means that you want to ensure that the entire world, the maximum amount of people are going to stay happy. For example, if you want to make a policy, likely a lot of like arguments will tend to be on the utilitarianism side, where you say, okay, how many people are going to be happy about this? Okay, how many people are going to survive? It's kind of like okay, if there's plane A and plane B, both of them are going to sink into an ocean, and you can only save one. Usually people will go, okay, save the one with the most people, for example. That's what utilitarianism ultimately boils down to. So when you go into that principled argument and the philosophical argument, you can break down why utilitarianism has been propagated and propelled and proposed by so many different parties for so long. Why does it work as a societal structure? Why does it work here in this lifeboat? Why is it more important compared to the preservation of life? Like, why is it better to kill one person to ensure the survival of all compared to just say, oh, you kill everyone on the basis of principle? Because when you're not in that moment, you don't understand how it's like to be pushed to the brink of like wanting to just survive, right? So that's one of the arguments, the first principle arguments that you can go by. Also, I'm checking that doesn't think. It's not an ethics class. It's a philosophy. Like, it's kind of like just like breaking down the examples, right? Now let's go to opposition a little bit. So we've seen a lot of opposition arguments about like also practical reasons and all that. I would say like philosophical, like psychological reasons are all practical and all that. But I think a lot of people talks about, it does fall into ethics, it does. So the ones that talked about like, I think how cannibalism is morally wrong. So basically, this one, if you want to make a clash that makes sense, it probably touches on Kantian theory. Have you heard of Immanuel Kant before? Immanuel Kant is basically someone who proposes like that morality reigns. Ultimately, even if you die, at least you're dying for a moral reason and making sure that you do not commit a grave mistake, if I need to oversimplify it. So the clash between these ideologies will soon come into place. Is it more important to make everyone on the boat happy, or is it more important to be morally righteous and morally right throughout the entire thing to ensure that humanity is not lost and all that? So it breaks down to these like fast spectrums, and you need to go in depth into like the motion. For example, you need to look into the keywords such as, okay, Parker's the youngest member, Parker's the weakest member, Parker's the one who has no family, murder, for example. These keywords are ultimately what makes the differentiations of what kind of principles you can go down into. So it can be philosophical, but it can also be sociological and like social justice wise. Like, for example, I think the opposition argument has the propensity to be able to like raise this. For example, if Parker is the weakest member, yes, he might die soon, but does that make him the automatic default for killing? For example, oh, Jiang has entered the waiting room. Hold on. Okay. The individual was just commenting. Yeah, possible. So it's like, yeah, that's a good clash for you to like note down as well. But basically, ask yourself, does the biologically weakest mean that you deserve to die? Like someone has mentioned that the fattest person should probably go. I think it's like share, like what's her name really? Shen Hu, right? The fattest problem will probably be eaten. So that's more practical, but it's like also like the kind of like asking the same question. Does the biologically weakest supposed to die? Like if it was a child and an adult, for example, obviously the child is not going to withstand the weather. Are you going to kill the child? Like, are you going to kill the child for food? You know? So when it bleeds down to that, the principles will always kind of like shine light on what kind of dimension you can go in. You understand? So when Parker's the youngest and weakest, like there's a lot of ways you can twist arguments and also make comparisons and analogies based on principles. If you already have the principles of how, for example, Kantian, or maybe on like community preservation, that just because someone is the weakest means that they are more deserving of being protected. It's like kind of like, oh, your children, like you know how like in lifeboats and all that, children get on the boat first and all that, right? Because they don't have the capacity to defend themselves. This is a principle that we have propagated since humanity knows like who knows how long, right? So why change that? You know, that's something that you can bring up as well. And these principle arguments sound a little more convincing usually compared to saying, for example, that oh, Parker is a sad person. But like I think like the Parker is a sad person adds flavor, you know, because like when you look at how the fact that he's no family, I think when Cordelia mentioned that there's no, like he has already been through a tough life based on implication already, right? Why sacrifice him? And also again, keyword murder, right? But government case will probably go by like again, look into the reality of the situation when you're pushed at that brink, at that moment. You are the ones like thirsting and like starving and you just want to go home. The principle is the preservation of life no matter what. You can argue about morals, you can argue about principles, you can argue about the philosophical context of like what this means, but in the end, I am starving and I'm starving and I want to live. So that individuality, that desire to live and be autonomous is also valid in its own principle, right? So in order to make sure that this doesn't become a very principled kind of like a very parallel argument, what does a parallel argument mean? A parallel argument means that in the end, if it's all in the flat line, because everyone's valid, right? This one wants to live, this one wants to live. You need to differentiate and set that distinction of like which one is a little more important for society, which one is going to be more important. I feel like how important you sound will ultimately outweigh everything else. If you can manage to make it sound like, I think like this is a method that a lot of the debaters do. They frame the argument to tie into societal advancement. Then like usually you can make it sound a little more important. And then the other person also frames it in a societal way. It's just a different spectrum of it. It always ultimately comes down to whether the judge will buys into your argument a little more based on the principles. So first principles is that there's a lot of different first principles, and like I will run through some of it with you. I will probably run through social justice because I feel like that's more relevant when it comes to like mainstream society and all that. And also I will run into like a little bit of economics, but economics I feel like if you're taking IG and you're taking economics, I feel like you got the gist of it already. Honestly, I took economics in A-levels. That is honestly all you need to know for economics in the most basic sense of the word. Of course, you can go in depth into it, but just know about supply, demand, diminishing value, the graphs, and also like the intervention of markets and all that. I feel like that is more than sufficient in terms of understanding like what economics brings already. Oh, Jiang, oh, so you're all putting thumbs up because Jiang asked you to. I see. I deserve thumbs up on my own accord. No, I'm joking. Thanks, bro. All right, so I'm joking. So as you can see, that is the being called when I talk about first principles and all that, right? Now, after talking about first principles a little bit, I'm probably going to go in depth about like what kind of modern issues, what kind of first principles are more relevant to debates and all that. I feel like I gave you the cannibalism one because it's funny. It's like if I tell you, oh, this house would ban cigarettes from the house, you're going to be like, oh, like this has been a dead and beaten argument to death already. What kind of new things can you bring? Or if I ask you like, this house would support the one-child policy, that's also something that's been beaten to death already. So cannibalism, that's great. Or like this house will support AI children and all that, like also another interesting topic. I love philosophical stuff. So that's something that you can kind of like look into like the different dimensions of, and I feel like it's very exciting, right? Oh yeah, capital punishment. Yeah, capital punishment has also been like beaten to death also. But I think there's a new cultural context though. Like capital punishment, if you understand what it means, also make it public lah. So like Adam mentioned that capital punishment is possible as a title to discuss. Capital punishment means like the punishment of like people, right? Like a punishment of students or children and all that usually, or maybe even criminal behavior. So if you are looking at that, again, the principle comes down to preservation of quality of life, or maybe the respect and autonomy towards a person,